Another emergency 49ers update. There's a lot to talk about right now, from Brock Purdy and the MRI on his back to Javon Hargrave and the surgery on his triceps muscle that will likely end his season, to Christian McCaffrey and the trip to Germany to get some treatment for his Achilles tendonitis. 49ers had largely avoided the serious injury bug last season. This year they're fighting through a lot more adversity on that front. And first, you guys probably want to know where I'm at. This is Dumbo in Brooklyn, down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. Quick visit to New York. As I said, we've got an event to attend. Back to 49ers practice tomorrow after we're done with all these bagels, and Korean barbecue was really good last night as well. But Purdy underwent the MRI. Apparently the MRI came back clean. Results are good for the 49ers, but he's still obviously sore from the game. He was carrying the 49ers on his back against the Rams. I mean, what a performance that was from Brock Purdy, who's now firmly established himself, I think, at or near the very top of NFL quarterbacks. But the 49ers definitely hope that the soreness subsides by practice on Wednesday. They had to report the injury as day-to-day. We're not going to make a bigger deal of it at the time being, just because the MRI results did come back clean for Purdy. For Javon Hargrave, though, the news was worse, and this is something that I really want to talk about because it's a complicated situation for the 49ers defense. They signed Hargrave in 2023. He was their prized pickup in free agency that year. $20 million a year, somebody who had top 3, top 4 pass rush win rate metrics for the defensive tackle position. Remember, in 2022, 49ers' biggest weakness as a team was their interior pass rush. Well, Hargrave has gone a long way to fix that, but the 49ers' run defense has regressed at the same time. He's a pass rushing specialist, and I think that the run defense, for him, it's not as good as somebody like DJ Jones. And you could really trace the regression of the 49ers' run defense back to the loss of DJ Jones, who signed with Denver in free agency after the 2021 season. In 21, the 49ers were the top run defense in all football. In 2023, they're number 26. Now this year, they're number 25 to start the season. And the defense as a whole is, they're number 30 in yards per play allowed. Number 30, that's not good for the 49ers. This is a bottom barrel defense that has not been able to do the most fundamental things right. That's even with Javon Hargrave in there. Now, Hargrave had the best game of his season so far. He led the 49ers with 5 pressures the other day. But it doesn't matter how well you can rush the passer. If your team can't stop the run to an adequate degree, you're not going to have enough chances to rush the passer, because opponents are just going to run the ball on you until you force them to stop. So that should be the first priority for the 49ers, and they were going to have to solve that issue with or without Javon Hargrave. Now they're not going to have Javon Hargrave, so they have to figure out how to stop that run game. So my question is, you got who moves up into that spot? Jordan Elliott is a backup on this team. He's the 5th or 6th defensive lineman. He's the best run stopper they have at the defensive tackle position. Does he slide up into the starting lineup? Kevin Gibbons obviously probably gets some more reps for the 49ers at that defensive tackle spot. Yetur Gross-Matos, he's technically a defensive end, but he's a player the 49ers envision as being a hybrid type who can move from end to defensive tackle. So perhaps you get a little bit more action from Gross-Matos on the inside. And of course, they have Evan Anderson too, the undrafted rookie out of Florida Atlantic, who I don't know if he's quite ready for a game day role at this point. I think they looked at him as more of a developmental player over this season, but sometimes guys might be pressed into action sooner rather than later. The stopgap there is T.Y. McGill, the veteran who's on the practice squad, who gave the 49ers some snaps last year when they needed them, and they're probably going to need more snaps at defensive tackle this season. But even with Hargrave, the run defense wasn't where it needed to be. So I've always looked at defensive tackle as a position where the 49ers might be interested in making a midseason acquisition, a pre-deadline acquisition. And that's why I brought up DJ Jones yesterday. This run defense hasn't been the same since DJ Jones left. He's in the final year of his deal with the Denver Broncos. I think his base salary this year was about $9 million. Denver's already paid 3 games of that. The 49ers probably wouldn't make a move right now, so the longer this goes, the cheaper DJ Jones would get. Obviously, the deadline would be the end of October when that NFL trade deadline hits, but it does seem to make some sense for the 49ers to, especially if they still believe in being able to get to where they're aiming to go this year. It does make some sense to trade future assets for something that makes a glaring weakness of this team better, and that has been the San Francisco run defense. So those are my thoughts on the Hargrave situation. People seem to be losing the forest while they're just focused and zeroed in on looking at the tree right here. There are a whole lot more problems on this 49ers defense than just one singular player missing games now or potentially missing the whole season on the interior pass rush. These guys have to stop the run, or else pass rush won't even be a luxury worry for the 49ers. That's something that you can only worry about after you have stopped the run game, and that's what the 49ers need to turn around. All right, so Christian McCaffrey heading to Europe. We don't have the details of what exactly he's getting done out there in Germany, although we do know that guys like Kobe Bryant have traveled to Germany before to undergo treatment for injuries and speeding up the recovery process. This is nothing outside of pro sports league rules, but there could be some techniques that Christian McCaffrey can undergo to help regenerate some of the Achilles tissue that apparently is still causing him trouble as he goes through rehab here in the U.S. Tendinitis is an extremely tricky and unpredictable condition, and the tendon is frayed, and playing on it too soon can obviously lead to a much more severe situation, an Achilles rupture. So you want to do what you can to regenerate that tendon, to bring it back closer to 100%. And obviously Christian McCaffrey will now dabble through something in Germany, although we don't have the full details on that yet. Because of how unpredictable Achilles tendinitis is, I think the whole timetable with Christian McCaffrey and his injury makes a whole lot of sense. He went out about, halfway through training camp for the 49ers. First they said a couple weeks, then he was ramping up back, at practice. He was running around, he was cutting very briskly on the practice field, working off on the side. It looked like his return was imminent. That was coming up to week one. And then everybody was shocked when Christian McCaffrey was ruled out of week one. And Kyle Shanahan said that around that time, he had his worst day at practice, which meant that the tendinitis flared up in a fashion that said that this was going backwards. So this has obviously been frustrating, but it follows what we do know about tendinitis. And again, the 49ers, as you've seen, they have the weapons offensively to move the football and to be productive. That has been the least of their worries. They have the quarterback, the elite quarterback in Brock Purdy, that's been functioning just fine without Christian McCaffrey. This is nothing that they should rush. They obviously aren't rushing it, and he's going to try to even hasten the process with this entire trip to Germany. So while we're waiting to see how this trip to Germany affects Christian McCaffrey's recovery process, I think we should focus on some of the more tangible parts of how the 49ers can improve. And those relate to Purdy. Talking about him, the 49ers obviously need him as healthy as possible so he can continue carrying this team. And those obviously relate to the defense and the very complex question on the Javon Hargrave side, because I know that they've lost a great pass rusher, but again, the focus for the 49ers, because they haven't tackled this yet, should be that run defense. And I do wonder what they can do without Hargrave to potentially improve that run defense, since that was the weakness in his game. Hargrave, by the way, he posted a video up on Instagram of Kobe Bryant talking about the motivation that he got to return from his Achilles injury. And obviously we're talking about Bryant because he traveled to Germany, just like Christian McCaffrey, I think back in 2003 or 2004. A lot of that, I think that was a knee issue that Kobe Bryant was dealing with at the time, but just a link of commonality there with a couple of the 49ers injuries to Hargrave and Christian McCaffrey. When we talk about Purdy, though, I can't help but continue to emphasize how damn good he's been, because the backdrop to all of these injuries for the 49ers and this entire run of obviously worse luck than seasons prior has put an even bigger spotlight on Brock Purdy, and he has absolutely responded. The 49ers aren't getting the separation receiving-wise that they'd gotten before. I think for obvious reasons, they're missing a lot of guys. I don't think that Brandon Ayuk is in full condition and in full form yet. The pass protection has taken some lumps for the 49ers, obviously, that have been exacerbated by the fact that Trent Williams is struggling to get through games at this point as he's playing his way into shape. I mean, the conditions just aren't great for the 49ers, but Brock Purdy is still delivering great football. And the defense is bottom barrel right now. They need to get a whole lot better. The reason San Francisco still has hope at this point in the season, despite the tumultuous start, the 1-2 start, just exasperating play, especially on the defensive side of the ball, the reason they still have hope is because of Brock Purdy. The further we go down this road with Purdy, the more situations that we see him in, totally unfazed, scanning the field, running for first downs. The more we have to say, a healthy Brock Purdy means the 49ers are in the mix and stay in the mix despite how bad everything else might be. Now, of course, they have to get better at these other positions, but it's no longer a situation like in 2022 when Brock Purdy took over and we weren't sure what the 49ers had in their young quarterback. It's no longer a situation where they have to have a top 3 defense to go along with the top 3 offense and a special teams that doesn't screw it up. Now I think the standard is make sure the special teams doesn't screw it up. That's the case for any team and any quarterback. The defense just has to improve from bad to average, and then let Brock Purdy do his thing with whatever weapons he had at his disposal. And somebody like McCaffrey returns playing really well. That's just added cushion. That's an added bonus, because if you have just average paired with the greatness that Brock Purdy has now firmly shown consistently that he can deliver, 49ers have just as good of a shot as anybody in this league. So I think that's the key for San Francisco. You focus on building this around Brock Purdy, not just in the long term. We'll talk about the contract and all that moving forward, but you focus on building these 2024 49ers who are fighting through all this injury adversity around Brock Purdy. He is the fulcrum, kind of like the Manhattan Bridge behind me. Everybody's kind of rotating around that. That's the spot for all the pictures and this 49ers video. Well, Brock Purdy's the fulcrum of what the 49ers are doing this season. And the good news, despite all the adversity, is that he's so good that you don't need to be world beaters outside of him. Speaking of world beaters, though, Broad Nosh Bagel here in New York. They've got 3 locations, and the owner, Robert, I had a chance to talk to him. This is, by the way, the highest rated bagelry in New York. He just started this place in July. He's already got 3 locations. He's 4.9 stars on Google. Tom Brady walked in there a couple months ago from his hotel in New York, and Robert convinced Tom Brady to try his signature French toast bagel. Brady wanted an egg and cheese, or bacon, egg, and cheese, and he wanted it on a normal bagel. Robert convinced him for the French toast bagel, which he allowed us to sample today, and it was insanely good. And supposedly Tom Brady then came back the very next day from his hotel to try this place twice. So I know we were in Montreal earlier this offseason, and they pride themselves on having the best bagels, but no city loads up the bagels the way that they do here in New York. And Broad Nosh Bagels with Robert, you can tell him I sent you, top class here in New York. And then last night we went to Koreatown, as I mentioned, Jongro Barbecue. It is quality. It was a feast here in New York. So anyway, that's your 49ers update, your 49ers food guide. Purdy, Hargrave, McCaffrey. Went through all 3. It's a busy time for San Francisco. We'll talk to you guys soon.